My funeral rites were of the highest caliber. After all, I was Emperor Zhao Sun's first wife, having served as the empress for 4 years. I upheld my duties with unwavering devotion, never once faltering. Even when he later favored consort Chen, creating friction with the Empress Dowager, it was I who mediated between them. When consort Chen fell ill, he tended to her for 3 days without removing his clothes, taking not a single sip of water. When my turn came, he showed no sign of grief, merely holding my hand as it grew cold, sitting there for a long while. "If there is a next life," he said, "I shall still grant you the title of Empress." I truly did reach that next life. At that time, Zhao Sun had not yet met his true love from this life. He decided to let the Empress choose a virtuous noble lady to be his consort. The Empress pointed at me. But when he looked over, his fingertip drifted an inch, choosing another instead. "Let's choose Miss Li, the second daughter." The moment our eyes met, I hastily averted my gaze. Seated before me was the 18-year-old Prince of Wei, Zhao Sun. Dressed in splendid robes, his face like jade, yet his expression held a detached, cold indifference. He had reached the age for arranged marriages. Having no beloved, he left the matter to the Empress Dowager's discretion. This lifetime, the Empress had also consulted me once. I had politely declined. So the Empress sighed with a hint of regret. After a brief pause, her fingertip gently moved to the next name. Li Shuanghua. "Let's choose Miss Li, the second daughter, after all." Li Shuanghua rose cheerfully and knelt to express her gratitude. Zhao Sun lifted his eyelids, his cold gaze resting on her for a moment. Just as he used to look at me. No admiration, no dissatisfaction. Merely an expression of passable, accepting this decision. The Empress, going through the motions, casually inquired, "Does the Prince of Wei have any objections?" He paused briefly, "None. If it's not someone he truly desires, then anyone will do." Two-stepping outside the hall, a fine drizzle fell. Pooled water on the ground reflected shadowy figures. I lifted the edge of my umbrella slightly, meeting the gaze of my 15-year-old self in the reflection. For a moment, it felt like a lifetime had passed. Zhao Sun's word was law. Once he had agreed to marry her, it could not be changed. I would never die of illness in the palace again. I remember clearly the day I died. People came in wave after wave. Court officials knelt outside the hall, noble women knelt within. Only the imperial consort Chen was absent. Her delicate constitution feared catching illness. Zhao Sun sat beside me, clasping my slightly cool hand. His silk sleeve covered my hand, soft and warm. My eyelids grew heavy, yet I forced myself to recall what I must entrust to him. "If you must choose a new empress, please select Consort Li. She is steady and dignified, she will never cause trouble for Consort Chen." I still harbored selfish motives. First, though I had competed with Li Shuanghua for years, I admired her. Her lifelong ambition was to rise above all others, and I was willing to elevate her to that position. Second, deep down, I harbored resentment toward Consort Chen and Zhao Sun. She entered the palace as a commoner, yet was made a consort without bearing an heir. This caused an uproar throughout the court and the realm. Officials pleaded with him, and even my father's secret letter reached my hands. It was year's end, and I was swamped with the 6 palaces' affairs. Pregnant and bound by duty, I had no choice but to persuade Zhao Sun. Outside the hall, blizzards raged. He received only me, sparing consideration for the child within my womb. Inside, warmth enveloped us like spring, yet his expression remained icy, lofty, and distant. His eyelids drooped slightly as he spoke but 2 sentences to me. "Empress, even you come to pressure the emperor. You dwell deep within the palace walls, you cannot understand. Rarely does the emperor encounter one to whom he can entrust his true heart." I froze, clutching my sleeve in mortification. True affection, I possessed it too. When I married Zhao Sun, I had just turned 16. As the crimson veil was lifted, meeting those calm, luminous eyes, ripples stirred softly within my heart. Later, I served 3 years as Princess Consort of Wei and 3 more as Empress. We treated each other with utmost respect, like guests sharing a meal. I believed there was at least affection between us. My grief was so deep I hadn't noticed the lingering snow beneath my footsteps. Now it melted, leaving dampness in its wake. As I took my leave, I stumbled outside the palace gates and was forced to bed to protect the pregnancy. This fall caused Zhao Sun to revoke his decree for the first time. The young girl, denied her title, lost her temper and cursed viciously. "Empress, I had long heard of your virtue and hoped to meet you. Yet to prevent my elevation, you would exploit your own legitimate son. Such tactics are truly despicable. She should never have touched my wound." Despite my illness, I summoned her and ordered 20 lashes across her face. Her face swollen crimson, she fled the chamber in tears. Upon learning this, Zhao Sun flew into a rage. To support her, he decreed her the imperial consort Qin, binding my hands against further punishment. Thus began my enmity with the imperial consort Qin. But I never intended to torment her. She had spoken insolently first. If I hadn't punished her, I couldn't have commanded respect afterward. I explained this to Zhao Sun. After listening, he merely smiled casually, his smile tinged with mockery. "If you wish to establish your authority, simply announce to the outside world that punishment has already been administered. Why resort to actual punishment?" My heart suddenly shuddered. I suddenly realized. The man before me was not merely the emperor. He could also be another's pillar of support. He could also, for the sake of others, make things difficult for me. 3 later, Consort Qin alone received imperial favor, and all the other consorts had to avoid her sharp edge. I had no choice. My worries were too heavy, and I often thought of the empress who had been deposed for lack of favor. Zhao Sun was no puppet. As sovereign of 10,000 chariots, he held the power of life and death. Whenever I troubled Consort Qin, he would admonish me. Should I ever stand in her way, I dared not imagine my fate. My heart grew heavy, and day by day, I sank into despondency. In my 7th month of pregnancy, the imperial consort Qin provoked me once more. Cradling her beloved dog, she declared abruptly, "Your Highness, the same trick only works once." Frowning, I ordered her removed and refused to see her. But it was too late. The dog suddenly went mad, barking wildly as it lunged at me. Though someone shielded me, the shock sent me tumbling to the floor. When Zhao Sun arrived, Consort Li had already been seized and led away. Consort Qin wept bitterly, her pale wrist bruised purple and blue where it had been gripped. Sniffling, she stammered, "I don't know what came over me." The empress fell backward the moment she saw me, then had my dog beaten to death. Zhao Sun helped her up, then stormed over to me, furious, convinced I'd used the child to frame her again. When he arrived, he only saw palace attendants carrying out basin after basin of bloody water. I had given birth prematurely. The child lived only half a day, never even given a name. I lay unconscious for 3 days. Zhao Sun kept vigil for 2. As death approached, I heard him whisper in my ear. "It was my mistake. I misjudged her. Once you awaken, she is yours to deal with as you will." I survived, after all. Upon waking, I dismissed the attendants and took my dagger to seek out Consort Qin. April skies held no chill. Yet I shivered uncontrollably, my hands trembling so violently I could barely grip the blade. The guards dared not stop me. Consort Qin collapsed to the ground, her headdress fallen, terror etched across her face. Just a few strokes, I thought. Then she could pay for my child's life. In the end, the blade never fell. An arrow whistled through the air from afar, piercing my hand. The bow was in Zhao Sun's hands. Seeing him, the imperial consort Qin rose and kicked my knee. She threw herself into his embrace, her body trembling with the grievance of one who'd narrowly escaped death. Zhao Sun pushed her away and lifted me. "Yingzhu, I know your heart is filled with pain, but her crime does not warrant death." My strength left me. Like rootless duckweed, I drifted limply into his embrace. Tears surged like a burst dam, flooding down my cheeks. For the imperial consort Qin was confined to her quarters, forbidden to leave without imperial decree. Zhao Sun was protecting her. My arsenic could not reach her. Knowing my days were numbered, I made my final arrangements. What needed saying had long been spoken. For Zhao Sun, only one thing remained. Appoint Li as the new imperial consort. He listened, then agreed. With a fingertip, he gently brushed aside the lock of hair clinging to my cheek. A flicker of bewilderment and anguish passed through his eyes. He watched me silently for a long time before speaking. And what of this emperor? Not a single word for me? His voice was unexpectedly hoarse. What could I possibly say to him? He possessed the 4 Cs, his beloved by his side. I wanted to say I hated him. But I couldn't. I was dying, and those left behind would still have to serve him as their sovereign. I curved my lips, my face pale, and whispered softly, "Then I wish your majesty prosperity for the nation, and 10,000 years of carefree reign." His hand suddenly tightened around mine. Zhao Sun lowered his head, his forehead touching mine, his movements trembling slightly. "If there is a next life," he murmured, "I will still grant you the position of empress." A single, scalding tear fell upon my brow. My thoughts were already blurring. In a haze, I pondered. If there truly is a next life, I would not be his empress. I died in his arms. He held my icy hand, yet could never warm it. The rain that day was like this now. Drifting and swaying, dampening cheeks. I wiped the water from my face and sighed softly. The empress had ordered a matron to escort me out of the palace. Waiting long without her, I turned to look. The palace doors stood tightly shut. Beneath the eaves, a figure stood holding an unopened umbrella. Through the beaded curtain of rain, he gazed at me. It was Zhao Sun. I recalled that before the arranged marriage, the empress had already brought us together. I had pursued him for a time, riding horses, hunting, and participating in the flowing cup ceremony. His attitude toward me had always been lukewarm. Not until after the betrothal. Only then did he smile at me, a smile that seemed both resigned and conceding. "Spending a lifetime with you might not be so bad." I took an imperceptible step back, lowered my brows, and bowed slightly. "Greetings, Your Highness." He descended step by step. Through the mist, his eyes seemed dampened too, inexplicably tinged with a touch of desolation. "Why not you?" he asked me. It was likely pure bewilderment. Clearly, between Li Shuanghua and me, the empress favored me, and I too had chosen him. I froze. The surrounding attendants had been dismissed. Unable to wait for my answer, he lowered his gaze to meet mine. The young Zhao Sun had always been taciturn and aloof, seemingly unable to voice his thoughts. Hesitating, he repeated the question. "Why not you?" "Clearly, mother chose you first." I found it hard to answer. I couldn't say how he had treated me cruelly in my past life, breaking my heart. Nor could I admit that in this life, my hatred remained unresolved, that I not only refused to marry him but wished for his death. I pressed my lips together. "Because Your Highness does not favor this humble maiden. To spend the rest of my life facing someone I do not love would be unbearably tedious and painful." He had spoken these very words. He said Consort Chen was special, the one he truly cherished, so I stepped back at every turn. To maintain a semblance of peace, I even went personally to persuade the Empress Dowager. I did not force him to spend his later years gazing at me with loathing. I died young. So early that my mother's hair hadn't yet turned white when she came to the palace gates to see off my coffin. The annals painstakingly record my virtue while harshly condemning Consort Chen. But I think about it. A reputation for virtue is useless. Wealth, honor, and power vanish like smoke after death. Only the grief of loved ones and the satisfaction of enemies remain. I wanted to live fully. Zhao Sun fell silent for a moment, his grip on the umbrella handle tightening until his knuckles turned slightly white. Then what if this prince were to say? Beads of rain the size of soybeans fell, striking the rim of the umbrella. "Your Highness," I interrupted softly, "the rain is growing heavier. If this servant does not depart now, the road will become difficult to traverse." The palace doors behind him swung open. An attendant emerged just in time, umbrella in hand, smiling as she approached. "Your Highness, the Empress and Second Miss Li await you inside." She turned to me, noticing my umbrella, and offered a handkerchief instead, urging me to wipe the rain from my clothes. I thanked her and accepted it. Zhao Sun, his words cut off, said no more. His gaze lingered on me briefly before withdrawing, and he stepped into the palace hall. The doors closed softly, and the sounds of the Empress and Li Shuanghua chatting and laughing spilled out. They seemed to mention Zhao Sun. He chuckled softly and replied with a few words. The matron led me out of the palace. The palace road stretched long. Only noble ladies of high rank could ride in palanquins. After walking for some time, my shoes and socks were splashed wet, leaving me rather bedraggled. The matron helped me into the carriage, then suddenly sighed and said meaningfully, "You're being foolish, young lady. Your Highness the Prince of Wei was visibly moved by you." I saw it all. Was it admiration? It was merely that my sudden change unsettled him. But I knew the matron meant well. Who did not know that the Empress, having no biological children, favored Prince Wei and Prince Qi above all others? With no crown prince designated, Prince Wei, being the eldest, held the greater advantage. I lifted the carriage curtain with my fingertips and offered her a gentle smile. My intentions lie elsewhere. 7. I returned to the mansion early. No one asked questions, they understood perfectly well. How could I not have been chosen? My grandfather held the highest office in the land, my father was the emperor's trusted advisor, and I possessed both beauty and talent beyond reproach. How could Li Shuanghua have passed me over? Mother took my hand, hesitating before speaking, urging me not to be sad. There are so many fine young men in the world. Marrying into a noble family would be a good thing. I shook my head, explaining I had declined the offer myself. I don't want to marry a prince or a duke, I said softly. I only need someone of good character. If there is no such person, I'd rather not marry at all. My mother was stunned. She never imagined that the Pei family, with its lavish feasts and noble lineage, could have raised a daughter with such a nature. She didn't know. I became empress, my name entered the annals, yet my life was far from good. But I believe she would have understood. After my death, Mother wept uncontrollably. Together with the noble ladies, she demanded the execution of Consort Chen. Father cast aside his official cap, kneeling before Emperor Zhao Sun, refusing to rise until he demanded an explanation. I had clearly left a letter. I told them to protect themselves and not to worry about me. Thinking of this, I lowered my head, a lump suddenly forming in my throat. Seeing my reddened eyes, she grew anxious, patting my hand gently as her tone softened. All right. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. 8. In the blink of an eye, 5 days passed. For some reason, the imperial decree granting the Wei prince a marriage had yet to be announced from the palace, and the thoughts of the various noble families began to stir once more. I saw Zhao Sun again on the flower festival. It was the height of spring, when 100 flowers bloomed in competition, making it the perfect time for outings. It was a clear day, and the sunlight fell warmly, allowing me to momentarily forget the damp cold of the cunning palace. Seated beside the flower beds, I joined the ladies of various noble houses in cutting ribbons and colored strips to tie onto the blossoms. Li Shuanghua suggested writing messages on the paper. Not far away, scholars gathered in elegant company, drinking wine and composing poetry. Miss Lu San frequently glanced in their direction, her cheeks flushed crimson. Everyone knew her fiancé was among them, so they teased her to borrow writing implements. She returned with them, a servant following behind. I recognized that attendant. He was often seen with Zhao Sun. The attendant held a redwood tray, his posture respectful, his smile obsequious. The tray held brushes, ink, paper, and an inkstone. This is His Highness's gift to second Miss Pei. Such an honor drew the stares of everyone present. Yet I froze in place, the tray burning in my hands. To accept it felt wrong, to refuse it felt wrong. This scene had never unfolded in my past life. Around me, muffled laughter stirred. No wonder His Highness Prince Wei delayed his decision, he was displeased with Li Er. Li Shuanghua rose, her gaze cold as she surveyed the crowd. Silence fell. She turned and swept away with a muffled sound. I took the tray, set it down gently, and spoke. Li Er has won the Empress's favor, constantly accompanying Her Majesty. How could we ever compare? She walked too fast, I had to jog to catch up. I didn't know how to console her, only murmuring in her ear that she was already doing well, that she shouldn't listen to others. In my past life, when I was consumed by sorrow, she was the one who comforted me. But people have different aspirations, it's hard to truly understand another's pain. She couldn't console me, and I couldn't comfort her. We walked for a while. She exhaled heavily and pulled me back. Forget it. If I hide, it only shows I've been hit where it hurts. I cut colored paper strips, and she wrote words upon them, praying to the flower goddess. I wrote too, borrowing her brush and ink. As noon approached and the crowd dispersed, Zhao Sun walked this way, drawing near the dazzling flower trees. Tall as he was, he spotted my paper strip at once, tilting his head slightly to read it softly. May I once again enjoy the garden, free from wind and rain, with spring birds heralding peace. He paused abruptly. Is that all you wish for? I didn't look at him. Yes. That single wish alone was already rare. In my unbearable past life, only bitter winds and harsh rains fell upon me. Even before my death. It was clearly the season of gentle spring rains, yet I feared the cold and damp. My unhealed wounds throbbed fiercely. Night after night, I lay awake with bloodshot eyes, listening to the rain drumming on banana leaves, contemplating my own funeral arrangements. I had done nothing wrong. Yet I still ended up in such a state. The same scene, with Zhao Sun present, would become a terrible memory. Zhao Sun casually picked up a nearby streamer, glancing at it briefly. You seek neither marriage, nor wealth, nor beauty? I didn't answer him. Wind swept through the treetops, making streamers and ribbons sway together, spring light rippling. I brushed a ribbon stuck to my forehead. His breathing grew slightly uneven. Finding himself uninteresting, he shifted his gaze away. The tray was placed elsewhere. The items he had sent lay neatly arranged, showing no sign of having been touched. Zhao Sun's eyes darkened slightly. It seemed he finally understood. I avoided him like the plague. I had more pressing matters to attend to. After the flower festival, news I had long sought finally arrived. I found the former consort Qin. In a dilapidated temple on the city outskirts, deep into the quiet night, I wore a veil, clenching my teeth tightly, my mouth and tongue tasting of blood. My maid, Shuyun, bound the unconscious girl before me. She said, her household registration and name have been verified. She is the person you sought. She didn't ask why I bore such hatred toward a stranger I'd never met, why I must see her dead. She only knew my rage was unbearable, that I could find no peace until this was done. A sharp dagger was thrust into my hand. Staring at the familiar face before me, I dared not think, dared not hesitate. One thrust pierced her heart. Blood splattered across my cheek, scalding hot. I collapsed to the ground, dazed, covering my face with a handkerchief. The broken Buddha statue stood solemnly, as if witnessing everything. Night brought the wind. Fallen petals scattered wildly, becoming spring's earth. I recalled that child who had graced the world with but a fleeting glimpse. She had no name. Consort Qin said her early death was an ill omen, so she was buried in the mausoleum, fading like fallen blossoms, carried away with the spring. I lay unconscious then, never seeing her, nor witnessing her final moments. I clenched the broken incense burner at my side, my nails digging into it. My heart ached as if squeezed by a hand, my breath stifled, my sobs suppressed and broken. Shuyun paused, patting my back softly. I kept vigil through the night until dawn. I confirmed my mortal enemy from a past life had no pulse, his body stiff. The first task was done. Shuyun handled the body for me. Weary, I stepped out of the dilapidated temple. Sunlight pierced the thick fog, slanting down. Then I saw clearly. A figure stood in the mist. The visitor was slender and tall, like a pine or cypress tree. His plain clothes made him inconspicuous. I recognized him. But at this moment, he did not recognize me. And he had just witnessed me kill someone. In my past life, Zhao Sun often spoke of a man to me. Lu Weiyan, the third-place scholar in that year's palace examination. Zhao Sun admired his talent and intended to recruit him. As the princess consort of Wei, accompanying Zhao Sun, I had met him once. His crimson official robe was both pure and vivid, yet his bearing was as icy as snow on Mount Gai, making one hesitate to look him in the eye. Zhao Sun summoned him. Citing official duties, he coldly declined, displeasing Zhao Sun. The second time, during the Yellow River flood, he accompanied Zhao Sun to distribute relief. Zhao Sun went to win the people's hearts. I sold my jewels and finery, dressed in plain white robes without adornment, and stood by the roadside distributing soup. The clouds dispersed, the rain ceased, and the sun beat down fiercely. Witnessing the people's suffering, my heart hung suspended, neither rising nor falling, and I stood outside, baking in the sun all day. That evening, Zhao Sun saw how exhausted I looked. He embraced me tenderly, urging me not to take things so seriously. Yet I returned the following days. Lu Weiyan was there too. No one could have imagined that the dignified official from the capital, with his jade-like grace and bearing suited for the highest halls, would wade through mud himself. He personally set up water gauges, built embankments to contain the floodwaters, utterly unconcerned about soiling his robes. I, too, admired him, watching him for a long time. He seemed scorched by my gaze, his back stiffening as he dared not turn around. Later, when Zhao Sun tried to win him over again, he learned Lu Weiyan had already sided with the Prince of Qi. The Prince of Qi was magnanimous. Yet he was Zhao Sun's greatest political rival. In the end, Prince Qi was defeated and executed. Zhao Sun ascended the throne, and Lu Weiyan became a prisoner. I went to the imperial prison to plead with him on Zhao Sun's behalf. Zhao Sun valued talent. If Lu Weiyan would renounce his former master and follow Zhao Sun, it would become a celebrated tale. High office and generous rewards would follow, needless to say. The imperial prison was damp and cold. I wore a cloak. He sat in a corner, thinly clad, disheveled hair obscuring his brow and eyes. His complexion was pallid, utterly devoid of his former bearing. He lifted his head, his expression cool and composed, seemingly prepared to face death. Our eyes met. I hesitated, wanting to speak but ultimately holding back any words of persuasion. I only ordered someone to tidy the place and bring him some warmer clothes. I urged Zhao Sun to spare his life, exiling him from the capital instead. Not executing a scholar of integrity would demonstrate imperial magnanimity. Zhao Sun agreed, banishing Lu Weiyan 1,000 li away. After the imperial prison affair. Until my death, we never met again. 11 The figure approached slowly. Only then did I notice he carried a book chest, dusty and weary from travel. His lashes and brow seemed misted over, making his eyes appear slightly moist. His features were different from my past life, softer, more youthful. I knew Lu Weiyan came from humble origins. Yet here we were, a dilapidated temple, a scholar preparing for exams, every detail mirroring the tales in storybooks. In those tales, the young noblewoman would give the poor scholar silver, then pledge herself to him. But me? Perhaps I too would offer him money, but only to silence him, to ensure he never spoke of today's events. My palms were drenched in sweat. Steadying the curtain, I reached out a hand. Lu Weiyan spoke, I've checked. No one is nearby. I won't speak of this matter either. His voice carried like a breeze through the trees, shaking dew from the leaves. I froze, startled and uncertain. I trusted him, his word was unbreakable. But truthfully, I had no choice but to trust him. As a commoner, the consort Chen was easy to deal with. But Lu Weiyan now held official rank. I couldn't kill him again and risk even greater calamity. So I withdrew my hand and murmured softly, "Thank you." The white gauze of the curtain was like thick fog. I couldn't make out his expression, but he seemed to smile. And so this matter, like a fallen flower, vanished without a trace. No one knew of it except the three of us. The imperial examinations in the 3rd month. Mother, concerned about my unresolved marriage, repeatedly joked that father should select a husband for me from the imperial examination list. The empress was also burning with anxiety. She selected another group of young women. But this time, Zhao Sun had demands. He found none good enough, each lacking something. It was said he dreamed of a maiden born into a noble family, kind-hearted and gentle, speaking softly and treating servants with courtesy. They would stand together through thick and thin, treat each other with utmost respect, and harmonize like Qin and Se. In the dream, spring rain fell like soft butter, and willow branches swayed gently. He could never see her face clearly, and upon waking, he felt a profound sense of loss. Gentle and virtuous noblewomen were plentiful. But who could guarantee that the chosen one would stand by him through thick and thin, never leaving him for the rest of their lives? Mother gazed at me with concern, stroking my temple. Born into a noble family, kind and gentle, I still feel Prince Wei has you in mind. This was no blessing. I shook my head, hiding my blood-stained hands within my sleeves. They were icy cold, impossible to warm. What kindness do I possess? I had just killed a man. And in time, I would kill another. 12 The day the examination results were announced. Seated in a tea house, arm in arm with Li Shuanghua, I watched the top scholar parade through the streets. She had insisted I must see it, calling it a feast for the eyes. I hear this year's top scholar is even more strikingly handsome than the third-place scholar. My mind drifted. Before becoming a princess consort, I never meddled in state affairs. So many years have passed since then. Without any connection to it, I wouldn't even remember who the top 3 scholars were. The spring breeze caressed my face, scattering apricot blossoms. I used my fingers to smooth my hair at the temple. Looking down, I suddenly froze. Lu Weiyan rode a white horse, a palace flower pinned to his hat. Even in this moment of triumph, his face remained serene, without a trace of impatience. Apricot blossoms blanketed his shoulders. The petal that had rested against my temple moments ago swirled down with my movement. He lifted his head abruptly, catching it in his palm. As if sensing something, our eyes met. It felt like years had passed, as if we'd forgotten what day it was. Only when Shiyan came to summon me, saying father wished to see me, did I hurry downstairs, lifting my skirt hem. This year, father oversaw the palace examinations. Though he had the advantage of proximity, he still fought fiercely, nearly coming to blows with other officials, to secure the dignified and reserved top scholar. Father shared the credit with me. He said this top scholar was inarticulate, too timid to speak to me, but under his encouragement, would personally come to ask for my hand in marriage. I froze. He truly was inarticulate, his words only becoming pearls when penned in official petitions. Dare not speak to me? I recalled how everyone often remarked that Lu Darren possessed a handsome face yet a character as rigid as iron, unyielding and uncompromising. Yet he alone dared not meet me, each time hastily averting his gaze as if encountering a raging flood or a ferocious beast. The Jade Forest banquet had yet to begin. Lu Weiyan had already dismounted, standing to the side, his posture erect and his demeanor bright and refined. His fingertips trembled noticeably, causing the apricot blossom in his hand to quiver slightly. He lowered his thin eyelids, his earlobes flushed as crimson as the palace flowers, his words hesitant. Lu is but a humble man, possessing only his sincere heart and life to present before second Miss Pei. I knew he was a man of exceptional character. I had seen him petition for the people. I had seen him speak truth to power. Every facet of him seemed admirable. I gently stroked the hem of my robe. Marriage was likely inevitable. If it were him, it seemed quite suitable. I lifted my gaze and smiled faintly, very well. Father chuckled, nudging his colleague. Dismissed. Dismissed. The top scholar is to become a son-in-law of the Pei family. No need to wait further. Hoofbeats echoed. In an instant, the surroundings fell into a sudden, chilling silence. Everyone turned to pay their respects to the Prince of Wei. I bowed along with them. But then I saw him dismount, striding straight toward me. His shadow fell across the ground, enveloping me like a dark cloud pressing down. He asked coldly, Pei Yingzhu, what did you promise him? The Prince of Wei was merely a guest at the banquet today. Yet here he stood, blocking everyone's path, his face dark with anger, like a storm gathering. I did not fear him. With all the high ministers present, His Majesty in attendance, and everyone watching, what could he possibly do? I lifted my head and answered formally, I agreed to marry the top scholar. A perfectly ordinary statement. Yet it struck like a pebble tossed into water, stirring endless ripples in his eyes. He froze as if struck by lightning, his body stiffening. Panic and bewilderment tangled in his gaze. Lu Weiyan's eyes fixed on him, his brow frosted with disapproval. I lowered my head. The banquet was about to begin, and I could not attend. I took my leave and departed first. The Jade Forest banquet was bustling with excitement. My father told me the top scholar was young and talented, and His Majesty was greatly pleased. At the banquet, he bestowed the marriage between me and Lu Weiyan. Prince Wei seemed distracted. For some reason, he accidentally shattered a wine cup. 13 The marriage between Lu Weiyan and me was settled. He sent me many gifts, sometimes imperial favors, sometimes paintings and calligraphy exchanged with others. Before even entering the Hanlin Academy, the emperor directly granted him an official position with a salary. The betrothal gifts kept accumulating. Reviewing the list of gifts, I was often astonished. In my past life, he had always been alone. Zhao Sun had once teased me. A man like Lu Weiyan, what would marriage be like with him? His heart is only for state affairs. To be his wife would surely be lonely and desolate. Now I know. He possesses little wealth, yet he would give everything he has, offering a heart wholly devoted. During our days off, Lu Weiyan and I would wander together. Small bridges spanned flowing streams, where fallen blossoms drifted. He gripped the oars, guiding our small boat. Looking down at him, I noticed his hand holding the brush was broad and strong, with distinct knuckles. No wonder he handled bricks and bows in my past life. Lu Weiyan grew uneasy under my gaze, veering the boat toward shore. I leaned slightly. Wind rustled the bamboo screens, white gauze brushing his cheek. His lashes fluttered. He abruptly turned away, lifting his hand to smooth the fabric, flushed crimson, unable to meet my eyes. Inju. It was the first time I'd heard him call me that. In my past life, when he came to the capital, I was already the future princess consort. Later, I became empress. When palace attendants delivered the imperial decree to the prison, announcing the empress had pardoned him, a faint glimmer of light flickered in his dull eyes. He accepted the decree and expressed his gratitude, yet never once addressed me by name. He said, truthfully, I was outside the temple that entire day. He was the crown prince of Jiangnan, and many had already placed bets on him, gifting him travel funds. He didn't need to stay in a dilapidated temple, he was merely passing by on his journey when he happened to witness me killing someone. Lord Lu was an upright man. But that one time, his only reaction was to stand guard outside and conceal it for me. Outside the temple, the wind wailed. I wept, he sighed. He said, the debt remains unpaid, does it not? I felt wronged once more, clutching the white gauze tightly as I muttered, yes. No need to say it aloud. He, too, had been reborn. He said he dared not come to ask for my hand, knowing himself unworthy. But having seen me in a past life, he knew even the most exalted ruler of the realm could not bring me joy, was unfit for me. Reborn once more, he became the top scholar and gained my father's favor, only then daring to speak. He bowed his head, his shadow swaying on the lake's surface, ripples shimmering. I beg for Inju's favor. The boat drifted for half an hour before finally reaching shore. I placed my hand in Lu Weiyan's palm. Lifting my skirt, I stepped off the boat and encountered the Wei King's procession. He had been waiting here all along. His gaze fixed on our clasped hands, his expression dark and menacing. 14 Zhao Sun said he remembered everything. He remembered how I had stood by him, not merely accumulating prestige step by step, but also being at his side on the day of the palace coup, sharing life and death. He advanced step by step. Inju, why are you standing beside another now? His hair was disheveled today, having come galloping on horseback, making him look even more sinister and devoid of his usual noble bearing. He addressed Lu Weiyan, had I known you harbored such thoughts, I should have disregarded Inju's wishes and had you torn limb from limb. The last words were spat out with deliberate force, his hatred palpable. Lu Weiyan showed no fear, meeting his gaze with cold composure. A breeze rippled across the lake, making the ribbon at his nape flutter like a sword shadow. Your Highness. Things are different now. Victory and defeat are yet to be decided. This time around, he was not the emperor. The outcome remained uncertain. If Prince Qi ascended the throne, it would be Zhao Sun who deserved to be torn to pieces. Zhao Sun's eyes reddened as he stared at me, his face growing deathly pale. Do you think so too? That I might lose? The surrounding tourists were dispersed, none daring to glance this way. He asked me. Are you unhappy being my lawful wife? Lu Weiyan's expression turned icy as he shielded me behind him. Tall and imposing, he held his own against Zhao Sun. Your Highness is being foolish. Is this even a question? By the time I died, I had been Zhao Sun's wife for 7 years. I had fulfilled my duties, never once quarreling with him. He believed he treated me well. Throughout the imperial harem, I held absolute power. Even when favored concubines tried to outshine me, my position as empress remained unshaken. Before my death, I wished him a long and worry-free reign. He promised me the next life. He thought this was a profound commitment. Wherever we meet, we shall be entangled. I shall be his destined empress. Yet he clearly saw my suffering, yet arrogantly chose to ignore it. Those words were mere pretense. I gazed at him, watching fallen blossoms drift down behind him as the sky seemed to darken. I hate you, Zhao Sun. I only wish never to see you again in this life. I only wished to protect those around me. Not a shred of sincerity lay in my words to him. Zhao Sun's expression cracked, inch by inch. His face turned ashen. He stumbled back several steps, his form swaying precariously, nearly losing his footing. I lifted my gaze to Lu Weiyan, my smile radiant. Where shall we go next? To the temple, I suppose. To match our horoscopes. 15 Lu Weiyan and I had our horoscopes matched, selecting an auspicious date. Zhao Sun was powerless. Only now did he realize how helpless I had been back then. Though I held power and appeared glorious, the sovereign still reigned above me. Without imperial favor, nothing could be accomplished. Zhao Sun knelt outside the purple forbidden hall, refusing to rise. A bamboo scroll flew out, striking his temple. Absurd! Do you seek to seize a subject's wife? This matter shall not be discussed further. If you persist in such conduct, return to your fiefdom. These were words of grave consequence. They meant he was barred from the imperial succession. On my wedding day, Zhao Sun did not attend the banquet. His Majesty also forbade Lu Weiyan from delivering an invitation to him. He drowned himself in drink at the capital's grandest tavern. After this binge, he sobered up. Indeed, no matter what, he remained the most important person to himself. He was disheartened. Yet I was on my wedding night. In the past, Zhao Sun was courteous to outsiders but cold toward his first wife, who didn't meet his expectations. Lu Weiyan was stern with everyone except me. In my presence, he lost all trace of his usual boldness in speaking truth to power. After just a few words, his face would flush crimson. More often than not, he feared I'd find him dull. After a few sips of wine, I draped my arm around his neck and slurred, "When did you start liking me?" Lu Weiyan replied, "The first time I saw you." The dim candlelight cast a hazy glow, blurring the line between past and present. I laughed haughtily at him. "Minister Lu, you have quite the nerve." His Adam's apple bobbed. Knowing that what he felt then was called coveting, he gently seized my wrist, leaned in close, his eyes shining like stars. Lu could be even bolder. Is that so? Zhao Sun finished his drinking and immersed himself in state affairs once more. Armed with memories of his past life, he should have achieved great deeds. Every matter was meticulously planned, the slightest deviation would ruin everything. Our rebirth had inadvertently disrupted the arrangements of heaven. The calamities of my past life failed to materialize as predicted. The causes of floods changed, and the numbers of displaced people shifted. Zhao Sun, brimming with ambition, was caught off guard and failed to become the savior. But the Prince of Qi succeeded. He was benevolent and compassionate, his heart always with the people. Lu Weiyan and I traveled to various regions together. I continued distributing soup and assisting at clinics. He rolled up his sleeves and worked the fields, tackling the grueling tasks no one else would touch. I recalled the first time I met him. I hadn't believed it either, that the third-place scholar renowned for his looks could be so earnest, let alone do such work. But this time, we stood together in the muddy water, our robes soaked through, and it didn't matter. Villagers by the roadside praised our names, as if Pei Yinzhu and Lu Weiyan were destined to be together. I was momentarily lost in thought. Gradually, I understood. This was what I truly wanted, to stand together through thick and thin. 16 Lu Weiyan was promoted and once again donned the crimson official robe. As a trusted confidant of the Prince of Qi, he had grown even more composed and astute than in my previous life, handling every matter with impeccable skill. Yet the palace was unsettled these days. His Majesty had fallen gravely ill. Sooner than in my past life. And just as before, he passed away suddenly, leaving no will or final words. The Prince of Qi had prepared long ago, as had Zhao Sun, who launched a palace coup. After half a day of fighting, Zhao Sun fled. Though now in a weak position, he had once been emperor. He knew the palace's layout intimately, including secret passages known only to the sovereign. King Qi was deeply troubled, fearing they hadn't eradicated the threat completely, allowing Zhao Sun to make a comeback. I said, I know where Prince Wei will flee. King Qi glanced at me, clearly surprised, then looked at Lu Weiyan. Lu Weiyan's expression remained unchanged. He said, I'll lead men to protect you. I found Zhao Sun. Long unseen, he too looked anxious and troubled, his face haggard. His silver armor stained with blood, he seemed at the end of his rope. His personal guards were dead, but allies still waited outside the palace. If he could save himself, there might still be a chance. My expression softened. Zhao Sun, I can take you away. A simple sentence. The moonlight was perfect, illuminating my hair and skirt, just as it had when I stood beside him all those years ago. I said, I don't want you to die. He looked up, disheveled, yet his eyes glistened with tears, a mix of joy and surprise, as if truly moved. He had once given me hope like this. He said, the imperial consort Qin is yours to dispose of. Yet he shot another arrow into my hand, severing my last chance to resist. I wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. To his eyes, it was still love for him, still torment over him. After all, we had been husband and wife for 7 years. After all, he was confident he could make me cherish him. Zhao Sun rose, I'll go with you. If I can ever fight my way back. The harem stands empty. I want only you. Suppressing the mockery in my heart, I lifted my skirt and led him through deserted paths. But my stamina couldn't match his, and I gradually fell behind. Rubbing the dagger hidden in my sleeve, I gasped, Zhao Sun, I can't run anymore. He turned to pull me back. But then, a blade pierced his chest. I drew the dagger and thrust it deeper, expressionless. His eyes widened in disbelief, a hoarse gasp escaping his throat. I smiled. Feel it now? The sting of betrayal. He was utterly powerless to resist, yet still clung to life. So, for once, I had the leisure to speak with him. Your beloved consort Qin is dead. I killed her long ago. My only regret is that you died too soon, unable to reunite with her properly. He strained to reach out, as if grasping for my robe. His breath was faint, his voice muffled, barely audible. He murmured, Inju. Actually, after you died, I had her executed too. She paid with her life for you. I didn't live to see that day, so I never knew if his words were true. Nor could I fathom whether the consort Qin was his true love or merely a recent pet he fancied. I only remember this. I treated him well, giving everything I had. He treated me badly, very badly, like an enemy. I withdrew my gaze coldly and plunged the blade once more. The hidden guards lurking nearby all sprang to their feet. I was cautious, I hadn't lured him here alone. Even if he sensed my treachery, it would be too late. The difference was merely dying by my hand versus being pierced by arrows. Gripping my blade, I declared clearly, I have slain the rebel. Lu Weiyan strode forward, pulling me into his embrace. He wiped the cold sweat from my brow, steadying my trembling body. Bending low, his forehead pressed against mine, he sighed deeply. He said, Inju. He said nothing else, only calling my name again and again, with deep affection and tenderness. From a truly gentle and kind-hearted person, to what he is now. He has endured too much. 17 This must have been the first spring I encountered after my rebirth. The new emperor ascended the throne, granting a general amnesty and reducing taxes to 1 in 30. Spring winds brought gentle rains, reviving withered trees. For my service in supporting the dragon's rise, I was granted the title of princess. The new emperor, seeing my long-weary spirit, granted Liu Wei a month's leave to accompany me on travels and distractions. Our painted boat drifted southward along the river, inevitably encountering wind and rain along the way. I wore only a straw cloak, standing at the bow, letting the rainwater fall into my palms. He always watched my complexion, fearing I might be stirred by the scene. I smiled freely, not anymore. It was merely watching the tide rise amidst the wind and rain across the river. The end.